Hello, welcome back to Virtual Worm tutorial number 13. I just wanted to cover some basics of visualizing individual cells and some other visualization options that we can discuss. One thing I just want to point out, as I've discussed in a previous tutorial, we can pull up and add the header for the 3D view window. And one thing that we can do here that I haven't discussed yet is if there's this grid here, this grid plane, that you may find kind of distracting when you're working and you want to kind of just get it out of the way. If we click on the view and then view properties on the view menu of this header, we can actually deselect grid floor and we can turn on and off the various axes lines, which are the red, blue, and green lines that we see. If we don't want to see any of them, we can deselect all and then close that. And now when we are looking around at our worm, we're not distracted by any lines or axes. Okay, so one thing I wanted to point out here in this tutorial is how to view an individual cell just by itself, or a set of cells just by themselves. So for example, let's return to side view. I'm going to pan over to the head here and I'm going to select, let's say I'm just interested in the HSN-R neuron. I'm going to select that and we see cell bodies over here. That's what we see selected. Now there's a couple different things we can do here. We can of course click opaque and then we can visualize it that way and in the context of all the other cells. And I showed you before that we can make everything transparent except for that, and then we can look at it in the context. But if we want to get rid of everything else, we want to hide everything else, there's a couple different ways we can do this. As I told you before, we can use the hide option to hide all the other cells. One convenient thing we can do is select inverse. And essentially we can either go down here and select inverse, or we can press the shortcut key Control-I. What this does is it selects everything but what we currently have selected and deselects what we had currently selected. So I could say, for example, select everything else and then press the hide button or press the H key, and that will actually hide everything except the cell of interest, which in this case happens to be the HSN-R neuron. And I'll click center to get that at the center of our view point. Oh, actually we have to make sure we have it selected and then hit center. And now we can see the cell body of the HSN neuron and how it wraps around the nerve ring. And then we hit Alt-H to actually bring everything back. Now alternatively, if we wanted to do something, select HSN, and we wanted to hide everything but that, an easier way is to hit Shift-H. If we press and hold Shift while we press the H key, that will do the same, essentially the same thing in fewer steps, and that will allow us to just hide everything but what we have currently selected. So that's two different ways to visualize an individual cell, or visualize only what you have currently selected. Again, we'll press Alt-H to de-hide everything, and then I'm going to make everything transparent again, including the HSN-R cell. Now another option for visualizing everything in the model, or visualizing small subsets, is sometimes, as you might see in the slidable worm project or transmission electron micrographs, they have nice thin slices of the worm in which you can kind of look at a cross-section. So one way we can actually do this is I'm going to select all and make everything opaque so that it's easier to see everything. And I showed you border select before, in which we actually press Shift-B and then we get this crosshair that we can then select with. I'll right click to cancel that out. But if we press Alt+B, we get a similar set of crosshairs. And then if we select a small sliver of the worm like this, it'll actually allow us to visualize only that portion with everything else removed. And therefore we can look at a cross-section of the worm, kind of like what you'd see in those TEMs or the slidable worm project. And we can kind of get a basic idea of where everything lays next to each other in a cross-section format without having to actually remove anything. And then to get out of that, we press Alt-B and everything kind of comes back into view. Okay, so that's how to look at individual cells and cross-sections. I'll see you next time.